What is now time for weather with Nebraska Extension AG Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. As harvest rolls on, Al has this extended look at what we can expect for weather this fall.
Well, folks, I'm away from the office this week as I'm up in northern Michigan taking care of the orchard. So I thought this was a perfect time to give you an update of what I think will be some of the things to watch out for as we go through this fall period, particularly since we've been coming off of such a significant drought across a good portion of the state. First and foremost, let's look at the official fall forecasts that were issued here about 2 weeks ago. First and foremost is the monthly temperature, a preliminary forecast that shows above normal temperatures centered across the Central Plains. Nebraska sitting in the southern half, sitting right in the core of this area in terms of precipitation. Most of the southern plains all the way to the western United States coast, below normal, slightly lower risk as you get up into extreme northeast and northern Nebraska. Now as we look at the forecast for the fall period, CPC is indicating equal chances to our north, just a slight chance for above normal temperatures for most of Nebraska. And in regards to precipitation, again, a slight chance in the southwestern 2/3 of the state for below normal moisture, with the core of it down to our south. Now that being said, this is a preliminary, these are based off the preliminary forecast, and there will be an official update at the end of the month for the monthly forecast, and usually that's tied directly to whatever the jet stream pattern is showing for the first half of October. So more importantly, the things that I'm kind of looking at first and foremost is once again looking for a third year of La Nina conditions, and I didn't even expect this, but one of the things we're noticing is this core area just above the equator, and this would be on the northern side of the Pacific, has been warmer than normal, and we have been seeing upwelling cold water on occasion, but it has not had the ability to break this warm pocket down. So this colder than normal sea surface temperatures you see here is basically this endless string of hurricanes that have been going off of the coast of Mexico. And we are well above what the forecasts were from the National Hurricane Center. In fact, we are now at the 12th named storm, and probably we'll see the 13th named storm here within this next week. More importantly, looking underneath of the depth, we see the return current, and we see this cold pocket coming up. And every time one of these cold pockets come to the surface, we call these Kelvin waves, we see that this warm pocket disappears, but it reemerges. So this tells me that there's not enough oomph, so to speak, for this to overwhelm and completely engulf all of the equatorial Pacific. Therefore, one of the things we will be watching for is whether or not we start to see the development of low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska, eastern Gulf of Alaska, that will renew the cold currents coming in and feeding into the Central Pacific. Currently, the statistical models say that this La Nina event will go all the way into the late winter, early spring period. The dynamical models ended as we get toward the end of the year, into the early part of the year. And more importantly, some of the dynamical models, and more and more of them, are coming to the conclusion that we may actually see this develop into a weak El Nino event as we go into late next year. So one of the other items to be watching for is hurricane formation. That's the big wild card. We haven't seen the activity in the Atlantic as projected, but we're starting to see an uptick the last couple weeks. We're basically sitting at the point of time where most of the hurricane activity will start during the month of October, will start to develop in this region as there's too much cold air aloft and too much shearing coming from troughs coming over the Atlantic to get activity going, and that makes it very uncertain in the Gulf of Mexico whether or not we will see some of these storms make landfall along the Gulf Coast. So from a standpoint of the upper air pattern, kind of giving an example, we're starting to see troughing actually coming into the western part of the United States. A little earlier than normal, but we're seeing that break off. So the big key issue is whether we get in through the month of October and November, whether these troughs start to come forward or whether they split that energy off to our north. If they continue this type of a pattern, then we are going to see dry conditions across the southern plains. And if they don't, then we will see a much cooler pattern and stormier pattern as we go through the month of October and November.